So the next one is a status effect that I've created. And I say created, I didn't think hard about the name, I just robbed it from Final Fantasy because it's the easiest contrast I can give. So, petrification. Anybody doesn't know what that means, it is essentially to petrify something, and to petrify it, when I can finish stuttering over the P for some strange reason, getting my fucking plosives all wrong, it's to turn something to stone, you know. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, there's a basilisk in that. A basilisk is a mythological creature that turns things to stone. It's a similar effect. That is the name of it. Mine is, however, extremely different. And there's a footnote on this for an alternative version of this point, because I thought it was quite interesting and I went brutal with it. So, a very rare and dangerous status effect that kills you and leaves behind a stone statue of your avatar. So when you get cursed, you leave behind that, like, prostate character that's all spiky. This would be similar, but this would literally be your character, how he looks visually, in a similar pose without the spikes. The statue of your body is then visible in all worlds on your server. It's also damageable. So I've put here, however, it is incredibly hard to break. If the petrified player can get back to his statue, think bloodstain, he can easily break it without any negative effects. However, if destroyed in a world outside of your own, you will lose a soul level, a kindle level, or an Estus reinforcement. So this is essentially a really mean variant of curse. And the footnote that I've given it is an alternative way for it to affect, because the notion of having this statue visible on your server is something that, you know, could be quite weird or wouldn't function too well. Think resonance signs on PlayStation. So alternatively, leave a statue where you died, akin to a bloodstain. If you die before touching your grave, it shatters and you lose all equipment, items, and weapons you had equipped. So this is essentially completely fucking your character. It is a massive repercussion. And I think it's a cool idea. I know we'll never see it, but just the notion of another status effect and something that has such consequence is totally Dark Souls in almost its very essence, and I think it's amazing. I would love to see that type of thing. Because can you imagine, you know, running, I don't know, through Anor Londo and seeing one of those statues and just knowing that everyone can see that statue and everyone's trying to break it, because if you do break it, you get something like a Titanite slab or something so rare it's worth doing, and you know the guy in his world is sweating his brow, he's shitting his pants, he's running back as fast as he can to reclaim that statue, and everybody's beating on it, and there's this opportunity to troll him without even knowing who he was, which is the very essence of interacting with strangers in a Soul game. So I think it would be really cool, but super unrealistic and ridiculously silly. But moving on in a similar vein, I've put a rare upgrade material reliant on curse status bodies. So I was killing Seath when I thought of this idea, and I noticed there was a ton of people that had been cursed in his room, and those bodies were just kind of there. So, this idea is, it's a perk to finding your crystallized body. It's also the ability to salvage rare materials from the husk. The balance I've put is a rare small handful of tools is needed. Think of it like, you know, the Crest of Artorias, how you open the door to the forest and then it's gone. Think of it like a mini pickaxe that you can buy that's quite expensive, that enables you to, you know, salvage one-time use out of these husks. And I've put also, once used, it cannot be gotten until New Game Plus for a balance issue, so maybe just one per playthrough. But the concept is, if you find an area where people can be cursed, you can effectively try and farm rare materials from the bodies. And I think that's just, it's a more organic way of getting upgrade materials, or putting emphasis on being creative to upgrade your weapons early, or just increase your knowledge of the game. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. It would need massive balancing so people are not just getting all the best shit off the bodies, because you'd just be running around Seath while he pretends to see you, even though he bloody can't, stealing all his bodies and then boning out and then going back down, and you could get some ridiculous stuff. So it would have to be heavily moderated so that it can't be exploited by, you know, crafty bastards like myself and millions of others. So this next one I think is great, and I don't know if Demon Souls had it, but somebody left a comment that made me think perhaps it did. I've put Summon Phantom, friendly fire against host, and vice versa, to promote intelligent action. So how Dark Souls didn't have this, I will never know, because I think this would be absolutely brilliant, and it would lead to some amazing, like Laurel and Hardy moments of giant havels with massive swords accidentally killing their own hosts, which, if that's not an epic fail worthy of a YouTube video, I don't know what is. So I would love to see that. Not only would it balance the equation for the large amount of people that enjoy ganking, but it would just also add a silliness and a shock value to fighting in close proximity and fighting in multiple opponents. I think it'd be really cool, but once again, it would probably need to be balanced in a certain way. I'm not too sure how, but I just thought that would be a cool idea. So this next one is a pet peeve of mine that I know a lot of people agree with. The ability to use multiples of items from your hotbar / pass over multiple Covenant items. So nobody likes standing around popping humanity, and nobody likes standing around popping souls, because it takes forever. It's ridiculous. Nobody likes giving a million things to a Covenant by going into the menu and selecting them all individually. Just give us the ability to give them in mass, to save ourselves some damn time. Because it's obnoxious and it's unnecessary, and I'm almost certain that that will be tweaked in Dark Souls 2, because they're taking existing systems and they're improving them and they're refining them, and I think that's definitely something that's going to be touched, because it's fucking dumb. It's so dumb. So here is just a slightly smaller idea. I've put a rare, unique weapon R2 disarms opponents. So I've given this a little bit of thought. Think of it like a dark hand, but instead of stealing humanity, it knocks the weapon out of the person's hand and it's glowing on the floor. I think that could be hilarious for a troll weapon, and it'd be really funny watching the host shit his pants, or the phantom shit their pants, as they either go into the menu and put on a weapon that's nowhere near good enough to fight you with, or they pick their item up and, try and equip it while you backstab the shit out of them. And at the same time, you knock the weapon out of their hand and you pick it up, so this could be the steal function that I mentioned, because that would be just crazy, racing a big fat Havel to his own Zweihander. That'd be great. But just something to think about, kind of unrealistic, just due to the fact of how trolley the internet is, but still diversity and interesting. The next ones are small and a given. Destructible environments. Everybody loves the pillars in Onsen and Smo's room. Everybody loves watching them smash and thinks, wouldn't this game be awesome if everything kind of smashed a little bit? I think it would be. I think it should do, and hopefully it will. Next one's a great one. This is Dark Souls all over. Negative message votes loses humanity / flasks. We have all read those fucking messages. I can't take this. Please recommend this message. Please recommend this message. I can't take this. Blah, blah, fucking blah. Those people, if you can't take it, don't play it. It's that simple. Don't keep putting these messages down so you can get free Estus Flasks or free Stones of Ephemeral Eyes or however it works on Demon Souls. Learn to play. Learn to take your beatings and learn from them so that you become a better player. Don't just beg strangers to help you out because you're not good enough to get further. This would be just genius, and it would have to be heavily moderated once again, because you would get those people who would do nothing but negative vote and try and steal everybody's Estus Flasks and humanities. It would totally suck. But if they limited it to perhaps one, that would be great. One time and boom. I don't know. It's so difficult to balance this, because it could be the best message ever and somebody would still want to be a dick and steal your humanity and stuff. So I'm not entirely sure how this would work. Maybe it would have to be several negative votes for the humanity to go. Maybe that's a better way of looking at it, like a consensus, like a ratio of high to low votes to separate the Dark Wraiths from the Sun Bros or something. But an interesting notion and something I would love personally. The next one is greater armor customization. I've put choice of alternative gloves on each hand and separate shoulder armor from chest plate. So I play Fashion Souls, and I don't know why. I'm just so design oriented on my characters. I love to give them stuff that looks cool. I love to find combinations of equipment that is slightly different because you're wearing them together and gives it an overall better look. I'm so aesthetically minded, it's insane. And I'm a designer, I'm an artist at heart, so that's my perspective on that kind of stuff. And I would love the ability to just kind of mix and match your armor just for anything if just flair, just to make them look awesome, because the deeper the customization, the better for me. I would literally have, every portion of a limb customizable, from knee to shin to forearm. I would have it all, different gloves to forearm. Just crazy amounts of depth if you want it. And I don't think it would affect gameplay too much, because you could keep it similar. You could just have specific armor that doesn't add any kind of stat benefit. Just a trinket that's got an interesting and flowery description but really doesn't do anything other than, peacock your character a little bit. Lots of wiggle room with that kind of suggestion though, and perhaps the armor might be tweaked a little bit, because that could be cool. But the next one is something I've kind of touched on a little bit. I've put Covenant-specific passive abilities, and the example I've given is joining the Forest Hunters allows for mobile bow usage. Obviously in the Dark Souls 2 footage we've already seen him moving and shooting the bow. This is an extension of that. I've also done a slash, and I've put Ninja Flip, because Forest Hunters and Ninja Flip go hand in hand. I've put here as another example. Once again, these examples are to be taken with a pinch of salt. They're just free-handed off the top of my head, completely winged, not too much thought unless I expressly say I've thought about balancing this a little bit more. I put Chaos Covenant imbues immunity to lava and greatly increases fire resistance. Could even grant clemency from area mobs akin to the forest NPCs. So imagine if you could join a Covenant that essentially gave you, I'm saying essentially a lot again, motherfucker, but a Covenant that gave you the ability to have undead rapport without using it. I think the notion of that would be great, because you could ambush invaders, you could do all kinds of things. Like, imagine a Covenant directed at hollows, only hollows and hollows alone, but they worship you and they kind of follow you, a little bit like that scrubber in the Tower of Latria that keeps chasing you so he can pray, a little bit like him. And then imagine killing the channeler in the parish, getting all that mob of hollows to follow you up the ladders and luring them through the door they can't seem to get through. We'd widen it a little bit to push them through. And then you trigger that cutscene with the gargoyle, and it's you and 20 hollows beating up a gargoyle. Like, luring potentially enemies that could kill you and NPCs into boss fights to have, unconventional backup. Or pulling the aggro of a really tough enemy like the Boar or the Tower Knight shield guy and luring him into a mob and watching them just swarm on him like ants. I think it'd be really interesting. It'd need some heavy tweaking to make it functional and make it not overpowered, but it's still cool. So the next one is controllable magics. Think Soul Spear's flight path being affected by analog inputs. It would need to be subtle and weighted for balance reasons, also leaves spellcasters even more vulnerable during cast. So what I thought for this would be, for instance, you fire a Soul Spear, if you don't touch the right analog, it follows its lock-on or unlocked or whatever you're doing, and it does its job as normal. But if you hold forward on the analog, and you veer it to the left, the arc of the projectile kind of careers a little bit, like curling a ball on FIFA, just to give you this extra control and the ability to pull off trick shots, essentially. Something cool. I've done it again, motherfucker. But just an opportunity to increase the fidelity and the control over your abilities. I think would be really, really cool. And there's a lot of stuff I'd like with magic that I could put on this list, but most of it is kind of mundane, so I'm going to leave it off. And we are coming to the end here, and I could really go on forever, and if I really sat down, I could probably get pages and pages of this stuff, but I don't want this to be a massive series. I want it to be something short and sweet, just to get those creative juices flowing. So here we've got the concept of migratory merchants and alterations of goods that they carry. Think of it like the clerics and how your progress moves their progress along. It would allow for miracle moments of salvation for new players and an opportunity for experienced players to exploit the locations / the item differences. So, on the original design doc for Dark Souls, they wanted the Dark Knights to wander Lordran, so that they were just these listless spirits that wandered around with no possible, salvation from the hellish existence that they've got after opening the kiln and being, blasted and all that kind of stuff. So this is just a similar idea to that, but with merchants. And Domhall of Xena does move a little bit, so he could be the perfect example of this, where instead of him just moving from the depths to the top of Firelink, imagine if they could move several places, given what you do or certain things that you trigger or certain events that happen. And then when they move to these different places, they get different wares, and their wares are specifically, dictated by the state of their environment. So if they move to the Dark Root Garden, they've got mosses, they've got, some interesting upgrade materials that only the Cat Covenant has access to. They move down into the Great Hollow, they get dragon-specific stuff. And I know there's not many dragon-specific stuff on the game, but it's just an example. Just this ability to... If you ever played Final Fantasy VIII, it had a card game on it, and I can't remember if it was called Triple Triad or Tetramaster, not too sure. But the card game was amazing, and you could play it with almost any NPC in that game. And there was a queen of cards, and she moved around places, changing rules in regions. That's how detailed this fucking game was. It's amazing, guys. I love it. And she moved around changing the rules, and you could exploit her in the way that her character, worked mechanically to spread the rules that you liked and get rid of the rules that you didn't like. And it was all about manipulating the dialogue trees and beating her a certain amount of times. And it would be the same for that. It would be an opportunity for the experienced players to dictate where these merchants go and moving them to the place that benefits your build the best. And not only that, but it gives a risk element too, where you're fighting in an area and there's a merchant there, and if you attack the merchant, he's going to defend himself. So it's the extra threat of not knowing, You're going to start using Wrath of God on everything? Well, make sure you know all those merchant locations, or your merchant's going to get real angry real fast. And I think that could be really, really interesting. And then the final one is an extension of Feeding Frampt mechanic. So everybody knows that you can feed Frampt stuff and get souls. You can also get him to break chunks and shards and slabs and things into different things. Well, this is more of an extension of that, where I've put alternative methods of accruing souls in a balanced, rewarding way. And my example is collecting upgrade materials for blacksmiths for unique rewards, or doing more detailed Covenant quests for unique rewards. And think Dark Mooning to get the ears, and then giving the ears to the Dark Moon Covenant to get the improved loyalty. But taking it to the next level, where you join a Covenant that has specific access to something you can't get any other way, and by doing miscellaneous tasks for them that are lore specific or game specific, you get some kind of prize. Like when you invade as a Forest Bro and you get the random upgrade materials, or the Ring of Fog, or the pendant and stuff. A similar thing to that, and just more impetus on diversity in Covenants and importance of Covenants, because aside from the PvP Covenants, I don't touch any of the others. There's no reason to. Like, if you play Dark Souls pre-patch, there's a really good reason of going in the Chaos Covenant, because you can open the shortcut into Izalith, and going past the fucking T-Rex torsos is hellish. Trust me, guys, I now know. And if you want to see that, I streamed it, and I got my ass blasted for quite some time before I found a path. And I wanted to get a red Titanite slab, and I couldn't open the door because I didn't have any humanity, because humanity is really hard to come by unless you farm, and I didn't want to do that. So I had to go back through the bastards again, and it was just as difficult, even after I'd done it. So that is absolutely hellish. So opening that door is a fantastic idea on a pre-patch Dark Souls. So that Covenant has use then, and if you're wanting a high-powered Pyromancer, you can join it, but aside from that, there's no real reason to. There's nothing keeping you loyal to Covenants at all. There's nothing stopping you from smacking that spider with a giant sword and stealing its Firekeeper soul. There really isn't, aside from the bonfire doesn't work anymore. But once you've beat the Bed of Chaos, are you really going to be going back to the Demon Ruins? I don't think so, unless you like diverse PvP. So I just want 1,000,001 things in my Dark Souls game, as I've just expressed. But to make the Covenants worthwhile is a cool notion that I think a lot of people share. And that is the end of my Dark Souls 2 wish list of things that if I was a developer, I would put a push for. And I hope you've enjoyed it. It ranged from, the valid to the insane, which gives it a nice bit of diversity, gives it a nice breadth of character. And as always, you take care now.